Library of Heaven's Path. Chapter 85. Pummeling Zhuoyang Part 2. Genkai Telepathy. You fool, use the 3 moves that I have just taught you. Execute the first 2 moves inversely, use your right hand and right foot instead of your left hand and left foot. Execute the last move as it is, just change the fist into a finger strike and strike at the spot 3 inches lower. Remember, it has to be 3 inches. It mustn't be any more and or any less. One had to be at least Fighter 5 Dan to use Genkai telepathy. Zhang Xuan's telepathy caused Yuan Tao's body to jolt. Somehow, he felt inclined to trust him. Let's just do it. Things are already bad as it is anyway. Without time to think too deeply into it, Yuan Tao decided to just go through with it. After all, it wasn't like he had any other ideas. Thus, without any hesitation, he did as the voice commanded him to. As a cultivator, switching a left-hand movement to the right was an extremely simple task. That left-hand grab turned into a right-hand grab, causing Zhuoyang to be taken aback. He tilted his head to dodge it and sent a punch back at him. However, before his fist could even reach Yuan Tao, the latter had already sidestepped from the right to the left, dodging his attack. Crap, he is using the inverse version of the technique. Zhuoyang immediately understood what is going on. Thus, he quickly withdrew his hands to cover his face. Previously, the third blow was a downward punch. Since his techniques were inversed, this move would be an uppercut instead. Furthermore, Zhang Xuan had said earlier to beat him up into a pig head. He reacted extremely quickly and his movements were swift. However, it was a pity that Yuan Tao's third move wasn't inversed. It was still a downward motion and furthermore, it was aimed 3 inches below what Zhang Xuan had shown earlier. Pu. Before Zhuoyang could even react, he felt a stabbing pain at his waist and his entire body went numb. This is bad, he struck my Mingmen. How did he know where my Mingmen is? Zhuoyang's face turned deathly white. He had carefully guarded the fact that his cultivation Mingmen was in his waist from others. Previously, the 2 inverse movements used by Yuan Tao made him instinctively think of protecting his own face. Never would he have thought that the other party's true motive lied here. The moment his Mingmen was struck, his entire body went stiff as though he was paralyzed. This is a good opportunity. Seeing Zhuoyang's body go stiff, no matter how foolish Yuan Tao could be, at this moment, he knew that he had struck the other party's Mingmen. After yelling excitedly, he charged over. He would be a fool if he didn't exploit such a God-sent opportunity. Pang 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 pang. At this moment, the techniques of the alley rough eons that should have never reached Zhuoyang landed like torrential rain on Zhuoyang's face. Before he could recover, his vision went dark. Yuan Tao's massive punch had sent him to the floor. At this moment, his years of experience brawling gave him the upper hand. Without much hesitation, he leapt over and sat heavily on the other party's chest. His 2 fists smashed violently onto the other party's face. Recovering from his numbness, upon seeing a fatty crushing his body and striking his fist, Zhuoyang felt so dismal that he was about to vomit blood. He was an apprentice of Lu Sunlishi, an expert who was in the 4th place in the entrance examination. Yet, at this moment, he was being beaten up by the fellow who was last in the entrance examinations. He felt as though he was going mad. Scram. He tried to push the other party away, but the other party is simply too heavy. As though a tiny mountain, no matter how much effort he put into his arms, the other party didn't budge in the least. Furthermore, his fists were as hard as rocks and they smashed down on him relentlessly. Before he can finish his words, he felt his mouth getting more and more swollen as though a bun, and quite a few of his teeth had fallen off as well. Are my eyes deceiving me? Zhao Ya and the rest were flabbergasted by the sight before them. They had experienced Zhuoyang's strength a moment ago and they had confirmed that even they were not a match for him. Yet, Yuan Tao, the weakest of them all, was about to achieve victory against him at this moment. When did he become so incredible? However, the most shocking thing of all was that their teacher's 3 moves actually worked. Enough. Yuan Tao. I have already said that beating him up into a pig head is enough, don't kill him. Upon seeing Zhuoyang losing his human appearance under Yuan Tao's frenzied punching, Zhang Xuan hurriedly stepped in to stop him. No matter what, he was an envoy sent over by Lu Xun. It wasn't appropriate for them to go too far. How awkward the situation would be if he were to be crippled under his pummeling. Other teachers, even the elders, would have to contemplate for a long moment before they could teach their students how they could counter their opponents. After all, a battle was constantly changing and evolving. However, Zhang Xuan was different. Possessing the library of Heaven's Path, he was able to know in advance what battle techniques the other party would execute and what responses the other party would come up with. As such, through exploiting the flaws in their techniques, he was able to come up with a strategy to counter them even before the battle begins. Even though Yuan Tao's strength paled much in comparison to Zhuoyang's, if he were to know the other party's Mingmen and make preparations in advance, defeating him was an easy feat. Yes. After sending a few more fists at his face, Yuan Tao felt the anger he had accumulated being vented out. Only then did he stand up and get off the Zhuoyang's chest. At this moment, Zhuoyang was already no different from a pig head. His eyes were swollen red, and his entire face had bloated up. His dignified look from before had disappeared without a trace. You are despicable. Struggling up, Zhuoyang gritted his teeth and glared at Yuan Tao. In his view, this fatty must have been putting on a show. He intentionally feigned weakness so as to put him off his guard, before doing a sudden assault to achieve victory. Damn it! Despicable. I am despicable, what about it? Do you want to give it another go? Yuan Tao didn't care about whether the other party thought if he was despicable or not. At this moment, he was still immersed in the exhilaration from bashing the other party up and stared back at him shamelessly. You. Seeing his fearlessness, Zhuoyang's complexion turned awful. Even so, he dared not to agree to his challenge. This fatty obviously knew where his Mingmen was. If he were to happen to strike it once more, he would just be beaten up again. Just as he was in a dilemma, Zhang Lishi's words echoed in his ear. All right, you have already left the other party in such a state. Yuan Tao, you should give it a rest. Zhang Xuan had a stern expression on his face. Good. Upon hearing those words, Zhuoyang heaved a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to say some pleasantries and leave the classroom, he heard Zhang Lishi speaking once more. Zhenyang, didn't you want to give it a try just now? Go on. Ah. Zhuoyang was taken aback. Didn't you stop him so that I can leave? Why are you asking others to get a go on me? After a temporary pause, a gleam of ruthlessness flashed across his eyes. It's fine this way as well. Previously, that Zhenyang was the first to charge over, and given the fact that he was able to send him flying with a single kick, it was clear that his strength was sub-par. Furthermore, given the experience he had with Yuan Tao, he should be fine as long as he guarded himself against the inversion the 3 moves. Besides, after getting pummeled so tragically, how could he account the situation after returning without repaying the favor back to them? At this point, even though he still held doubts, Zhuoyang gritted his teeth and sneered, come. Fine. Zhenyang stepped forward. Pang pang pang. The two of them started crossing blows. Zhenyang, who was sent flying with a single kick previously, seemed as though he had eaten some incredible tonic. He flew around the field, refusing to face Zhuoyang directly. I dare you to fight with me face on. Zhuoyang bellowed. Normally, even if Zhenyang were to skirt around him, he would have the strength to catch him and defeat him. However, he was just beaten to a pulp by Yuan Tao and his body is aching tremendously. It is almost impossible for him to land a blow on a Zhenyang, who was focusing all of his efforts on dodging his blows. Sure. Upon replying, Zhen Yang's left hand grabbed forward. After which, he sidestepped to the right. He used the first move as it is, inverting only the second move. After which, before the other party could react to the abrupt changes, he used his finger as a sword and jabbed straight at Zhu Hong's waist.